The candle guttered as if afraid to bear witness. Beneath the chapel floor, the air clung to stone like breath on glass, wet, warm, and ancient. The girl lay on her side, limbs caught in fever, her skin waxen and taut. Her breath came in ragged pulses, and yet, it was not her breath that moved her belly. It shifted again, slow, deliberate. Not a twitch of muscle, nor the stretch of bone. But something turning, curling, pressing. As if it knew it was being watched. The friar sat across the room, still as a tomb effigy. He'd stopped praying days ago. Now he only wrote, his hand trembling slightly as he dipped quill into ink. He dared not name what stirred beneath the girl's skin. Instead, he cloaked it in Latin, safe behind ritual and form, gestatio sine gratia, a carrying without grace. She had been a quiet child. Promised at birth to the church in exchange for a plot of barley land, her hands had once folded in obedient prayer. Now they gripped the woolen blanket with fingers cracked from fever. A rosary lay beside her, untouched, its beads swollen with mildew. She moaned, not from pain, but from pressure. Something pushed outward from within, rippling just below her ribs. The friar's breath caught in his throat. He reached for the crucifix at his neck, but his hand hovered there, unsure. He remembered when they brought her in. The bishop's cart rolled through frost-bitten fields, draped in red cloth, as though carrying a relic. Her mother had followed barefoot, screaming until her voice gave out. Beast, she had whispered, not to the man, not to the sky, but to the girl. Not a curse. A warning. They had called it a divine mystery. He had prepared them himself, wolf's milk, quicksilver, crushed henbane, dissolved in warm sheep's blood. He had read the old texts, the banned ones, bound in green leather, wrapped in chains. To form life where none belongs, use the womb of the clean and the seed of no man. It was meant to be theory, allegory, madness. Now, it kicked again. Stronger. He leaned forward, ink blotting the margins of his notes, and gently lifted the wool from her abdomen. Her skin bulged. A hard shape shifted beneath, pressing upward like a knuckle breaking through cloth. It vanished, and her breath caught in her throat. Then, silence, long, dreadful silence. He closed the book and stood. The cell reeked of salt and sour milk. The candle cast long shadows that trembled with each movement. He touched her forehead. Burning. Still burning. And yet the rest of her was cold. She turned her face toward him. Her lips parted, dry and bloodless. No sound escaped. But her eyes had changed. Gone was the cloudy glaze of fever. What stared back now was sharp, lucid. As if something else had awoken inside her. A bell tolled above. Low. Final. The friar stepped back. He made the sign of the cross with fingers that no longer felt clean. He heard movement behind the wall, not footsteps, but a scraping, like claws on stone. He turned the key in the iron brazier. The old text said warmth must be constant. Let the wound grow cold, and what was inside would turn, not die, just turn. She cried out suddenly, a small, strangled gasp. He rushed to her side. Her stomach twisted beneath the skin, drawing up toward her ribs. She clutched her side and mouthed a word he did not understand. He took her hand. It was stiff, already curling inward. The friar looked again at his book. Gestation, Day 41. Movement stronger. Eyes away. No signs of decay. He did not write that her heart now beat out of rhythm, or that when she blinked, the whites of her eyes had darkened to yellow, spreading down her spine, nor the twitch in her jaw. Those things belonged to stories whispered in cloisters and burned in the records. Outside, snow began to fall, slow, silent, unfeeling. The friar reached again for his quill. Behind him, the iron brazier hissed and flickered. In the silence, the girl stirred. Her hand tightened around his fingers. And from deep within her, something purred. Not human. Not beast. Something in between. He turned the page. And wrote. Because writing was easier than screaming. And far above them, the bells rang again. Not for mass, but for birth. The wind dragged the scent of copper and smoke across the snow-veiled hillside, winding down to where the forest thinned and the healer's hut stood, half buried beneath drifts, its roof sagging under the weight of winter and secrets. The mountains behind it watched like old gods, silent and unmoved. Inside, the heat clung thick as cloth, the halves beating with resin-slick wood. Shadows clung to the corners. The scent of pine ash mingled with something darker, wet linen, Scotch wine, and a tang of bough. On a low table carved from blackened oak, a woman lay bound, arms outstretched, wrists wrapped in linen strips soaked in warm claret. Her skin shimmered with sweat. Her hair stuck to her temples. Her eyes fluttered, not in sleep, but in surrender. She whispered a word in Norman French. It might have been a name, or a prayer. No one answered. The monk stood beside her, hunched, trembling. His robes were threadbare at the hem. His breath fogged in the air. With shaking fingers, he unwrapped the bundle he had brought from the priory, a roll of cloth tied with reed string. Inside, a bladder glistened faintly, pale and swollen. The sutures had been made from hair, taken from the woman's own head. The monks believed it would help the thing inside recognize its home. They called it homunculus, a man-made man. But it had no name. The theory had come from far across the sea, born of Arabic manuscripts and brought west by traders. There, it had been metaphor, alchemy and spirit. Here, it had become literal, brutal. Cloistered minds had twisted it into something divine, or damned. To make life, they said, One must only mimic God's hand, add warmth, silence, confinement, and sin. Mercury to swell the flesh. Honey to sweeten the blood. Bat's wings to ensure breathlessness. Mass spoken over a belly bloated by transgression. And time. Always time. This one had lasted 23 days. Longer than the others. The monk had dared to hope. But now, her stomach trembled beneath his palm. A sharp motion from within, like the jerk of a hooked fish. Not rhythm. Not breath. A twitch. A message. He stepped back. His knees cracked. He prayed louder, slipping into Latin, as though it might shield him from what he had helped create. Libera nos a malo. Deliver us from evil. The woman wept. Her voice was barely there, like water through moss. Not from agony, but from certainty. She had known the moment they mixed her drink with crushed opium. She had felt the change in her blood. What swelled inside her now was not hers. It was not anything's. It was grown, coaxed, fed. Outside, the forest was still. But then a howl rose, a shepherd's dog, echoing from the path. The monk flinched as though struck. A candle died. Shadows thickened around the table. The woman moaned. Her belly rolled again, as if something within were shifting its bones. The monk made the sign of the cross with a hand that did not stop shaking. He looked at her and saw not a vessel, not a miracle, but a tomb waiting to split. You have stolen the work of angels, the voice in his head whispered again. He tried to silence it with another prayer. But it was too late for that. The woman arched suddenly, her bindings pulling taut. Her mouth opened, but no sound came, only breath. Only sorrow. The linen soaked through again, this time not against the skin, deliberate and heavy. The monk turned to the fire. There was nothing left to do, except wait, and bear witness. And in the dark, the woman's tears fell faster. A candle guttered its last. And the mountain winds began to rise, as if to carry the sound of her grief somewhere the monks would never dare follow. Outside, the snow fell heavier. And inside, something began to stir. By linen, thin, frayed, stained by the teeth that have beaten it too many times before. The sound is swallowed by stone, lost among vaulted ceilings and the murmurs of saints painted long ago in red and gold. No footfalls echo in answer. No doors open. No voices rise. Silence here is not absence, but policy. Far beyond the cloister, in a narrow chamber perfumed with wax and iron, a boy lies pinned to a table. He is small, his limbs thin from hunger, but his gaze is wide and too old for his years. His wrists are bound with leather softened by oil. He does not struggle. Not anymore. The walls around him are lined with cages, bird cages, once home to finches and doves. Now empty. Now silent. The monks call him the Pure One. Taken from the plague fields before his body had known filth, before sin could make its home in him. They speak of bloodlines in hushed Latin, of vessels that might carry what Scripture never dared name aloud. In the old texts, they found illustrations, grotesque and glorious. Creatures with faces like cherubs, spines like serpents, and wings. Wings that must be born from flesh unstained. He was brought here for that reason. His back bears the marks of it now, cuts along the spine, where they search for buds, for signs. They open the skin with small knives, deep in rose oil to prevent infection. They say the body will grow what the soul needs. They say the divine takes form only in pain. Beside him, on a side table carved with angels, sits a bowl. Within it, something raw, pulsing faintly. Blood congealed with feather. A failed attempt, or perhaps a beginning. No one knows. It twitched once, last night, under candlelight. The bishop saw it and smiled. The boy watches the window now. A robin perches on the sill. Its feathers are the color of rust, of drying blood. He watches it with aching stillness, holding his breath. The bird pauses, tilts its head, then vanishes into wind. He has learned that grief is useless here. One monk leans close, brushing the boy's dark hair away from the temple. His hands are cold, trembling not from doubt, but from anticipation. Another enters, carrying a parchment. New sketches. New methods. They whisper again of wings. The bell rings once, vespers. A holy hour. The boy flinches. So does the thing in the bowl. It moves again, barely perceptible. But enough. The monk crosses himself. The others do not. In that brief silence after the bell, the boy dares a question with his eyes: what will I become? No one answers. They do not know. Or they do, and will not speak it aloud. The candle burns lower. The blade is lifted again. Outside, the wind gathers and the robin sings somewhere far from this place. Somewhere mercy still exists. The room is thick with breath and rot, with smoke that clings to the skin like guilt. Lavender oil has been poured over the stones to mask the scent, but it only mingles, sweetness tangled with excrement, blood, and the sharp tang of burnt herbs. Nothing here smells of life. The manor is silent save for the low moans behind the chamber doors. Outside, a nobleman paces, his boots dark with mud, his hand resting heavily on the hilt of his sword. He is not praying for her safety. He prays for the continuation of his name. Inside, the girl is dying. Or becoming something else. She is 15. Pale as milk, except where fever has blotched her cheeks. Her red silk gown is soaked through at the belly, darker in the folds where the blood gathers. Her mouth opens in gasps, not screams. She's beyond that now. Her breath comes in fragments. Her hair is plastered to her forehead with sweat and powdered herbs. For midwives hold her down, wrists, thighs, shoulders, ankles. They press her to the floor, which is covered in fur rugs stained from births past. None of them have witnessed one. An alchemist kneels beside a brazier, fanning coals until they pulse like slow hearts. His robe is singed at the sleeve. His hands are ink-stained. On a table nearby lies the girl's birthing charm, pressed from brass and engraved with runes no one can read. It was placed on her belly each night for half a year. She was prepared carefully. Figs and goat liver. Salt water washes. Bleeding under full moons. Incense of clove and arsenic choked her lungs as she slept. 3 languages whispered over her womb. But now the time has come, and the child does not stir. There is no kicking, no flutter. Only a swelling, a pressure that distorts her body into something unrecognizable. The alchemist speaks calmly, almost lovingly. It is not a child, he says. It is potential. He steps closer, holding a copper mirror to her face. Her eyes meet the glass, and for a moment, something flashes. A glint of gold. Not human. Not quite. One midwife turns her face and vomits into a pail. Another mutters a prayer through clenched teeth. The girl arches. A noise tears from her throat, animal and raw. Her spine lifts off the rugs, trembling. Outside the door, the nobleman stops pacing. He hears the sound. He does not flinch. This is what he paid for. Inside, the alchemist smiles faintly. It begins, he says. But nothing begins. Nothing ends. The room is still. The girl collapses. Her body shakes with cold. And still, the child does not move. A window slams open somewhere in the house. Wind rushes in. A candle gutters. The copper mirror falls, face down. And beneath the fur rugs, something shifts, so slowly, so subtly, that none of them notice. Not yet. The wind speaks first, low and trembling, dragging through pine like breath through broken teeth. Night clings to the forest like wet skin, and in its heart stands a crooked heart, lashed with rope, sealed with bone, washed over by wolves who do entered this place. No cross marks its door. The villagers call her healer when they need her. Which when they do not. They come in silence, wrapped in shame and secrecy, leaving bundles at her door, girls with full bellies and hollow eyes, babes born twisted, boys who scream in their sleep. She takes them all. She does not speak often. But she keeps records, not in ink, but in string and scar. She carves truth into deer antlers, braids sorrow into bird-bone necklaces. The walls of her heart whisper with stories only the lost would understand. Tonight, she works by tallow light. A boy lies on her table, 12 years old. Bones sharp against his skin. Lips cracked from thirst. He does not know where he is, only that the hunger has changed. That his body is not his own anymore. She peels back the cloth that binds his stomach. Beneath his belly, a lump pulses slowly, like a second heart beating out of rhythm. She presses her fingers against it. The boy whimpers. She does not flinch. Murmuring in Old Norse, she pours salt into his navel, a ritual old as the soil itself. Then she reaches for her blade, its edge forged from the rings of dead pilgrims, their prayers now melted into metal. She speaks a name. Not aloud, but deep, in her throat. A name not remembered by time. And then she cuts. The skin splits. The air turns. The fire gutters out. What she draws forth is not flesh, nor creature, nor soul. A sack, quivering, veined, wrapped in hair and bone. It reeks of iron and wet leaves. The boy sobs once, then falls still. She does not cry. She has seen this before. She wraps the thing in ash-soaked cloth and buries it beneath the hearth, pressing it deep into the earth, muttering words meant to keep it still. In the morning, she will burn the boy's clothes. Scatter the blade's edge in river stones. No one will speak of him. No one will ask. But the soil remembers. And something beneath it, something that has waited, stirs in its sleep, but in veils, falling sideways across the convent garden, hissing against stone, soaking the herbs left too long to wither. The sky was grey as ash, bruised with something heavy. Inside the apothecary's chamber, there was no fire. Only breath. Only blood. A young nun lay twisted in the straw, her gown soaked through, her fingers clawing at the hem of a woolen blanket. She did not scream. Her strength had been spent hours ago. She breathed in gasps now, shallow and fragile, as though her ribs could no longer agree to rise. Her skin was the color of milk left too long in a cold room. Kneeling beside her was Sister Agnes, her hands raised up to the wrists, whispering prayers even as her fingers shook. She had delivered 6 stillborn lambs last winter, but never a child. Never one born of prophecy, or so she was told. Behind them, in the shadows, stood the abbess. Eyes sharp beneath her veil. Lips thin. She held no rosary. She offered no prayer. She had stopped praying when the letter arrived from the Archbishop with coin and commandment. They say the child is chosen, the letter said. They say it comes not from sin, but from celestial touch. But the abbess had seen the bruises. The silence. The night's cold ring dropped in the font. Still, silver-bought silence. And silence held the walls together. Now, the girl convulsed once more. A thin cry escaped her, then stopped mid-breath. Her head fell sideways. Stillness. No heartbeat. No cry. No final prayer. Then, a twitch beneath the cloth. Sister Agnes leaned close. Pulled back the swaddling. What lay beneath blinked once. Its eyes were black. Not newborn black, but finished black, like polished obsidian. Watching. Ancient. The midwife gasped and stepped back. The abbess moved forward. Her arms reached without tremor. She wrapped the child in grey wool and held it to her chest. It only stared. It did not cry. Its breath was slow. Its skin cold. Thunder cracked above, but the bells within the convent did not answer. Not at first. Then, softly, they began to toll, not prime, not matins. A time no sister had ever marked. The abbess did not look away. "Close the shutters," she said. No one moved. Rain struck the glass like whispered warnings. The child blinked again. And from some unspoken place between heaven and hunger, something old took root. The door clicks shut with a sound that does not echo. It sinks, swallowed by stone, by silence, by what waits in the dark below the throne. The palace above hums with the sounds of feast and music, strings plucked by trembling fingers, goblets clinking, laughter spilling like wine. But here, beneath marble and velvet, the air is still. It smells of wax, of sweat, of metal and decay. The king's physician moves like a ghost between rows of low beds. On each lies a woman, young, old, faceless in sleep or stupor. Their wrists are bound in silk, their ankles tucked like children's. At the foot of every bed, a candle burns, its scent heavy with rue and tallow, as if to ward off spirits that have long since made peace with their presence. He has a theory. Not whispered, not debated, written. Studied. Taught to no one. Breed loyalty. Not through laws. Not through sermons. But in the womb. He paces with purpose. Behind him, his assistants carry steel trays, each lined with narrow vials, coiled feathers, dried roots, and just sealed with pig's bladders. One contains an eye. Another, ink black as mourning cloth. The tools of Genesis, not by God, but by governance. The physician believes that loyalty can be baked into blood. That fear, precisely measured, can shape the pliant. That if a woman is broken in the right places, her will shattered like glass under velvet. The child that grows in her belly will carry that obedience like bone. Tinctures of poppy to dull the breath. Bells rung at dawn and dusk, attuned to the humus. Injections of goat milk thin with ink from the king's own scribe, to bind symbol to seed. They were taken from across the realm, some offered, some forgotten, some simply missed. One stirs. Her breath catches. Her lips move in a language the physician doesn't understand, Breton, old and soft as smoke. A prayer? A curse? He nods. He turns to his journal, its pages smudged with ink and sweat. Inside, sketches line the margins, round heads, smooth skin, eyeless or all eyes, some with no mouths. Designed for silence. He writes, Subject 6 has begun auditory response. He dips his quill again. Then something shifts. The woman is watching him. Her eyes open fully now, not dull by drafts, but clear, sharp as a hawk above battle. Her gaze does not plead. It knows. And then it happens. Beneath the silk sheet, her belly shivers, no kick, no flutter. A hum. Faint at first. A vibration more than sound. But it grows, steady, rhythmic, like bees in a sealed hive. Like a voice being tuned before it can speak. The assistants stop. One drops a tray, metal against stone, a scream of its own. The physician steps forward, hand trembling. The woman does not blink. The candle at her feet gutters, bends, then extinguishes. And in the sudden dark, the hum becomes a harmony. Something has heard.